This is an interesting challenge. This is an old house, what, before 1900?
It's the late 1890s, we think, Don. Yeah, we've done a bit of work researching and we can't really date it, but late 1890s to turn of the century. We had a very clear concept. I worked with a very talented garden designer called Jo Taylor. Jo's also a very close friend of ours, and she knew us, knew how we lived. And basically the idea was to use traditional plants that may have been in the garden at the time, but to use them in a 21st century way.
Do you have a name for the field?
Yeah, Granny Goes Groovy.
Granny Goes Groovy.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I like that.
Originally, the house stood on what is today 5 blocks and has been subdivided and subdivided and subdivided. We were left with the original house and just one tree. There wasn't even a blade of grass.
We should point out nothing in Perth is substantially less than nothing anywhere else. Sand plains,
Yes.
it's virtually a house on a desert.
That's what it was. It looked like somebody had taken a house, sort of, you know, Dorothy Goes Back to Kansas. The house gets dumped into the middle of the garden and that's all there was, just sand in the house.
Agave attenuata, it was one of Granny's plants.
It sure was.
And for probably over 50 years, when mixed with a lot of plants, it looked wrong and it was hated.
Yeah. Well, there's also a bit of a personal connection to these because these come from my partner's mother's house.
Ah.
And that's the family home and the whole thing. So we've actually taken these from her garden.
And I suppose what makes this modern is the fact that there's a fair bit of geometry.
Mm-hmm. The idea was to bring in some contemporary architectural forms to counterpoint the classic house.
Merino gravel.
We love the merino gravel. We like that very much. It's a nice sort of dull colour, you know. It works well.
Sheep poo, it's
yeah,
very good.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Yeah.
Lovely water feature.
Thank
really
you. Yeah,
glorious.
no, we're very pleased with that. We've always had water in our gardens and we didn't want something which was the classic water wall, which in a way we were tempted to with this wall area here.
And you've used a tree here which is really interesting, Queensland bleeding heart tree. It is a bit of an environmental weed in some areas. It obviously isn't over here in the west.
It's not. We don't have the tropical climate here, so it's curtailed a little bit. We searched and searched and searched until we found this, and I'm in love with it now. And you know, it's we've got a number of people that keep saying, "What is that tree? What is that tree?" So
it is a lovely plant, and of course, for those that don't know it, although as I said, it's an environmental weed in more moist areas of Australia. There's always the red hearts. Sprinkled throughout the tree.
It's lovely. It has that little element of the colour coming through.
Now, you're an interior designer, Christian.
Yeah, that's right. I work mainly residentially, and we work on all levels of projects, sort of from one room right the way through to one of our clients at the moment is asking us to help them find property, find an architect, and come up with a total concept for 2 dwellings. So it depends on the client as to the amount of work that we do with them.
Again, some great old plants. I mean, cycads were typical of the Victorian era where they loved the bizarre and the exotica.
Yeah,
and all
well,
of
I've
that.
always sort of enjoyed the bizarre and exotic things.
Yes.
But the cycads, we were very fortunate. We were looking for fairly established plants and found these 2, which have doubled in size since we put them in. But again, it was to give a feeling of perhaps they had been left behind in the house.
And Stephanotis, I don't think it's anywhere near grown as much as it should be.
Well, we're thrilled with that.
And many a virgin bride staggered down the aisle, clutching a little bunch of Stephanotis in the old days.
Well, I won't be doing that.
Oh, isn't this wonderful?
Being such a tiny area, we wanted a pool that was decent enough to use, but we didn't want anything that was going to take over the space. So we've chosen just a natural grey to go down to carry the feeling of the paving across.
That's a very, very good mixture of plants.
Thank you, yeah. I was looking for something that would give us privacy and a feeling of luxury in such a tiny space.
I suppose we should point out with the Traveller's Palms, they're right at their southern limit here in Perth.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to go, and they would need to be against a masonry wall or in a masonry area where there's a storage of heat through the day, otherwise they might have trouble. Probably on the east coast, south of Coffs Harbour, it gets increasingly risky with travellers' palms.
I wanted a foil again for this plaque that we'd found.
It's great, isn't it?
It's fantastic. I found that in an antique shop here in Perth, and we think it's the history of transport. We think, we're not sure. It actually, but we believe it may have come out of one of the rail terminals.
Oh, it's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. You realise that a lot of people are reaching for how you decorate around some of these older homes, and there'll be a lot of people at home at the moment thinking, I can steal that idea and I can take that one.
Yeah.
And good luck to them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's design is a global thing. People should all benefit from it.
Yeah, well, look, I think that quite a few will benefit from this.
Good. I hope so.
Well done.
Thank you.